Hello and welcome to the program. I am Dennis Adigunloye. Towards reducing poverty, the international community gives wide attention to social prevention interventions as key to achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 1. That, of course, is to eradicate poverty by the year 2030. On its part, the federal government, in collaboration with the World Bank, is seeking to work towards the development of social safety nets under the National Social Safety Nets Program. On this issue, we shall have the National Coordinator of the National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office to enlighten us on what the agency is doing to achieve this laudable project. And we shall also take a look at the agency that is known as NAFDAC. Of course, that is the National Agencies for Food and Drug Administration and Control, and plans to take the agency to even greater heights in terms of its regulatory mandates. And as usual, we have the media review segment with Cecile. Hello, Cecile.
Yeah, hi, Dennis. On media review, we shall take a look at the build-up of 2019 politics. It's been a tense political space in Nigeria with 2019 around the corner. Yeah. We want to know how much attention the media is focusing here and how balanced has been the coverage of the media in this area. All right.
As you said, Cecile, the elections are fast approaching, and the political journalism on political landscape in Nigeria is certainly one that we shall take a great interest in the coming months. Thank you, Cecile. And up next will be our first topic. Thanks for staying with us. Now, to discuss this critical issue of poverty alleviation in the country is the National Coordinator of the National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, NASCO. You're welcome, sir, to the program. You are the person of Mr. Apera Yowa. I hope I got your name correct.
You did. Thank you, Dennis. Okay. And welcome, viewers.
Thank you very much. Obviously, we're talking about poverty alleviation in the country, and Sustainable Development Goal number 1 is to eradicate poverty by the year 2013. Just to start with, just tell us what is the mandate of NASCO in this regard.
The National Social Safety Net Coordinating Office, NASCO, is an establishment of the federal government under the office of the Vice President, the Special Advisor to the President on Social Investment Program, Hajia Mariam Weiss MFR. We're established 2 years ago, and the mandate is to help the government build what we call the National Social Register. And I'm sure later on in the program I'll be able to talk to what that actually means. The second mandate is to lead on the building blocks for the social safety net programs for the federal government. And of course, I'm sure in the later part of the program I'll also be able to talk about that. So we are under the office of the Vice President at the State House, working in all the 36 states of the Federation, including Abuja.
Okay. Initially, just get your assessment of how this this initiative to eradicate poverty in Nigeria, how's it been going in your assessment over the last couple of years in terms of achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 1?
I think successive governments have made several attempts at pushing the poverty alleviation agenda in the country. I mean, we've heard of the NAPEP, we heard about the Shopee, and the others. In my experience and knowledge about some of these programs, I would say the current administration's push for poverty alleviation is by far the most ambitious. Over the last 2 or 3 years, they've been budgeted over 5 billion naira annually towards this agenda. And they've established a number of programs, including the cash transfer program, the Empower, the JEEP, and the homegrown school feeding programs. Now, these sorts of social investment programs are all geared towards addressing the issues of poverty and supporting our people to lift them out of poverty.
Okay, so let's come back to NASCO itself, the workings of NASCO. Obviously, the agency aims to develop a national social registry of poor and vulnerable households. How does the agency actually aim to achieve what some might consider to be quite a massive project?
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And if you permit me, I would like to take a step back and explain to our viewers exactly what the National Social Register is.
Okay.
The National Social Register is an information gateway of potential eligible households, poor and vulnerable households, for social interventions in the country. Our approach in Nigeria towards this, it's commendable and perhaps a leaf from what has happened in other countries where the social register, they start developing it from the beneficiary register point of view, and at a point pull it all together into a national social register. And this might also throw some confusion to our viewers, so if you permit me to explain just the difference. So the National Social Register is a collection of all poor and vulnerable households who have potentials of accessing any social intervention. The beneficiary register is specific to an intervention. So in Nigeria, we're building a social register. And now from this social register, the National Cash Transfer Program mine beneficiaries and establish their own beneficiary register to then give to poor homes the 5,000 naira that the federal government is giving on a monthly basis. So that's a major difference. And how do we intend to build this register? We're building this register in all the 36 states of the Federation and Abuja. And we're starting with all of the local governments in all of the states. We started with a few. The intention is to saturate the entire LGS, entire communities, and the entire state within the next 5 years.
Okay. So what are the actual targeting mechanisms of, to identify who is considered to be in a poor household? What criteria do you use to assess this?
We use a combination of 3 targeting mechanisms. One is the geographical mapping, which talks to the poverty ranking of all local governments in the state. So in a state, I'll give an example of, say, Edo State. Okay. So in Edo State, the first point of entry into Edo State is to consider the local governments that we'll start with. So because of the schedule of the work and the resources, we go with the first 30% local government, and we'll consider the poorest local governments across the 3 senatorial districts of a state. Okay. So we'll get to a state, we use the poverty mapping, which has already been done by the Office of the Statistician General, the World Bank, UNICEF, and other agencies. Okay.
So a lot of the work has already been done in terms of
identifying those local governments. So for each senatorial district, we take the first 1 or 2 local governments who are considered the poorest. Okay. And when we get into we identify these LGAs, then we engage the communities in what we call the community targeting mechanism, where we identify the community, discuss with them, we identify 3 separate groups. One is the group for the youths, the second will be the group for women, and the third will be the group for the adults, the male. Okay. And then they identify for us the poor households within the community. They agree within themselves what by their definition is poverty and how they will identify the poor households within the community. So they identify these poor households within the community. Now the 3 groups identify these poor households separately. They will call all 3 of them in a plenary where we agree and we harmonize the list that for this community, these are the households that are identified by the communities themselves that are poor and vulnerable. Okay. Now, there are a lot of differences sometimes. Some of the households will come back, some of the groups will come with different households. So we throw this open to the community and they agree that indeed, maybe the youth group identify a household that is not as poor. comparatively to the understanding of the community, so we decide on a single list. Of course, there are other situations where the families themselves says, yes, you have identified also, but we don't want to be identified as poor and vulnerable for obvious reasons, which is also acceptable. So they could opt out at that point, but then we agree and we sign off, and then the community sign off on this list. After they've signed off on this list, we then come and then enumerate each of these households. We take all the necessary information. Now, the information taken in all of these households then leads us to the third targeting mechanism we call a proxy mean test. All of these families that will be identified through a computerized system, we then identify in that community and rank these households from the poor to the poorest. Okay. Now, this then gives opportunity to programs to mine this data according to their mandates and their needs. For the National Cash Transfer Program, they mine from the first to the sixth decile. So they target those poor families from the lowest of the poverty pyramid within the poor households. So it's not, first of all, like the cash transfer program, it's not everybody on this social register that accesses the cash. Yes. It is those who are considered the poorest of the poor that are targeted. So from the first to the sixth decile, they are mined to access the cash transfer program. But also there is what we call the grievance redress mechanism. So this process identifies two members of the community who serve as representatives of the communities, where community members will channel their grievances. So those who have been excluded that think genuinely should be on this list, we channel their grievances through this process and we then address it. Okay. So there are several strategies that we've put in place to mitigate on this potential errors that you spoke about. Okay.
You said before that this project has been extended to most states of the Federation. Am I correct in saying that? Or how many states exactly have signed up to this or are benefiting from this initiative?
So we have a memorandum of understanding with all 36 states and the Federal Capital. Okay. The social register so far has up to 23 states with data. Right. The rest of the states are in various stages of implementation. So after we've signed the memorandum of understanding with all of the states, we then require the states to establish the state coordinating offices where they sort of second civil servants from the pool of the civil service into these offices to mine them. They will also be responsible for providing office space, that's office accommodation, some startup working equipment. And so with that, some states have gone ahead with others. Others are just starting. Others have established. But I would say we have started field activities, and by this I mean data collection in all of the states except 2 states who have just established their own state coordinating offices. And we are hopeful that by the end of this month, we should have data on the National Social Register from all of the states.
Okay. Is there any other initiative being undertaken by NASCO in terms of maybe education, enlightenments for, those that you identify as the poorest of the poor?
Yeah, so we developed the register. The implementation rests with other bodies. Okay. But from our side, to ensure the integrity of the register and the entire process, and also for those who also mine the data from NASCO to then implement various social investment programs or social protection programs like the cash transfer program, we engage the CSOs who are all over the country. So we've already in the process of recruiting the CSOs who are members of the community themselves, who monitor these activities. So for instance, we expect reports from the CSO monitoring group on the registers that we're developing, that indeed the members that were identified as poor and vulnerable are those that were actually enumerated into the program. We've also engaged the independent output verifiers, those who call independent output verifiers, who are private audit firms, who then audit the entire process, because the social register is built on an output-based financing level, which means it's the amount of data that the states are able to bring on board that we get to give them monies from. Even though the money comes from the federal government through a credit with the World Bank, the register is actually the responsibility of the state. And it rests with the state. It starts with the state social register. That's where we pull it all together into the national register. So we've put various mechanisms in place to ensure the integrity of the register, but also to ensure that those who are identified as poor and vulnerable in the community are actually those who are on this register. And there are also those who are actually accessing some of the social intervention programs that will come on board, starting with the cash transfer that is currently on by the federal government.
Okay, obviously the whole purpose of the register ultimately is to get them out of poverty. Obviously they will not necessarily stay in poverty throughout their lives. So how this register, is it on an annual basis that it is updated, or is it on what cycle is it updated? So
we raise the register. It's on a 2 years update cycle.
Okay.
But beyond that, there are also other ways that the register gets updated. So when a program like the cash transfer program mine the data from the social register to implement this cash transfer program, they go back to the field to then register them onto the beneficiary register.
Okay.
Now, in the course of doing this, there might be changes. So when we build the social register, there might be gap in terms of time between when we collected the information from these families and when they come to mine them for any social intervention. And there might be changes in that family. There might be some deaths. There might be new entrants in terms of birth. There might be new entrants in terms of marriages. There might be changes in terms of movement, migration. And so they identify these gaps in this information, and then they feed it back to us.
Right.
We then take this information back to the states to then update the register accordingly.
Okay.
Other than that, every two years, we are expected to then go back to these communities to then say, this is the information we collected 2 years ago. What is the status now? Has things changed? Has things improved? And also, we will anticipate that there will be other issues, either man-made through crisis like the herdsmen crisis, Boko Haram, etc., that will throw families into poverty. There might be issues like the natural issues like floods, issues like that will change the status of a family. Now, within this period, those changes might have happened.
Yeah.
And so that exercise to regularly update this information would sort of help bring those who have been thrown into or below that poverty line, or those who have been lifted. And of course, there are so many other interventions that would have lifted those families out of poverty. And so you expect those charges to change.
Of course.
And so this regular system of updating then sort of help us balance out the information to ensure that constantly we have those who are deserving to be on the register, to continue to be on the register.
All right. Just briefly, finally, just identify for us the criteria you use to determine the levels of poverty. What does a family or an individual have to what boxes do they need to tick to qualify in your assessment of as poor?
Actually, the community identified those who are poor for us.
Okay.
Yeah? And then we take their necessary information, their biodata, their income status, their wealth, the assets they own, and all of that, which help us then put together the proxy mean test that ranks the families accordingly. So I might not be able to give you details in terms of all of the data fields for obvious reasons, but the community, the responsibility of identifying those who are poor and vulnerable in the community rests with the community members themselves.
All right. Well, Mr. Apera Yoa, the National Coordinator of the National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, would like to appreciate your comments and for joining us on Insight and enlightening us on this laudable initiative by the agency. We certainly hope that it will make giant strides in terms of reducing poverty in the nation. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and thank you for inviting us.
You're most welcome. And up next will be our second topic on the workings and mandates of the NAFDAC. This is still Insight, and on this segment of the program we shall be focusing on the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC. The agency turns 25 this year, and to discuss the journey so far, I have with me in the studio Mr. Dr. Abubakar Jimo, who is the Director Public Affairs of the agency. You're welcome to Insight, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, we have also in the program Mrs. Moji Makanjuola, MFR, who is a media consultant and, of course, a seasoned former broadcaster with the NTA. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Thank you for joining us. Let me go to Dr. Jimo first. Let me just congratulate you on 25 years of the existence of the agency that is NAFDAC. Just in your own words, just tell us, give us your insight on the journey so far.
Thank you very much. The congratulatory messages for all of us as Nigerians. And NAFDAC was established by decree number 15 of 1993. So we are 25 years and we are celebrating the Silver Jubilee. And people would ask the question, why do we have to celebrate? We have a lot to celebrate because going back to the memory lane, we've come a long way. From whatever perspective you want to take it, as a regulatory agency, we started from a very humble beginning in 1993, and 25 years down the line, NAFDAC has evolved, has emerged as one of the top 20 mainstream regulatory agencies in the world, a shining model of other regulatory agencies that the federal government and Nigerians are very proud of. At international level, NAFDAC is making Nigeria, NAFDAC is shining and is making Nigeria to be proud. So, from being a mere public health institution and a scientific organization, NAFDAC has also evolved as a key driver in the federal government's change agenda in terms of diversifying the economy from its monolithic dependence on oil to export of value-added agricultural products. So from that perspective, whichever way you want to see it, you know that we have something to celebrate. So this celebration is not the usual one that we do, that people do with pomp and pageantry, but for us it's a sober reflection for us to go down the memory lane and do a kind of self-audit, take a kind of stock taking and take a look at where we are coming from, where we are, and the journey into the future. So crystal gazing into the future and see, do a self-check and see where we need to do, where we have missed the point and what we need to do better to strengthen the agency so that not just only being one of the top 20 regulatory agencies in the world, NAFDAC will be number one in the next 25 years, the way we now talk about celebrating.
Yes, we look forward to that. Let me bring in Mrs. Moji Makanjuola.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us on the program. Just give us your assessment of how things have gone over the last quarter of a century.
Yes. Well, the fact that I've reported health for most of my career, this gives me, you know, a sense of fulfillment. Well, I was there when NAFDAC started, and we started. You remember that little office at the Federal Secretariat in Lagos, and we used to juggle, and it started, you know, something small, people understanding the perspective for which we needed a NAFDAC in the health system, not just in terms of food products, but the integral part of be a player in public health became an imperative for Nigerians. So NAFDAC from a little start with Professor Suide, you remember, yes, who was the first Director General, and then we had bless her soul, Dora Kwele, and of course Professor Mujiadi that we have today, and of course Mrs. Oni, who came in. If you go along the West African coast, before now, which I have had privilege to follow through, before now, any medication, for example, that came from Nigeria was rejected. It was assumed to be unwholesome. But that's not the case today. I'm sure the pharmaceutical industries have all gained from the existence of NAFDAC in the last 25 years. So it has been value added in terms of export and in terms of you having a sense of saying what I'm taking is wholesome. Today, ordinary Nigerians go about and ask, is it NAFDAC certified? Even our foods, you know. You go to the canteen and you ask, is it NAFDAC certified? So the media has been an integral part of the growth of NAFDAC, and I think I humbly would like to represent that. It's been rough, it's been tough, but looking back 25 years, I think it has been worth every piece of work that has been put into it. And you attend international for a WHO that stamps, that gives the standard for health universally. NAFDAC has become the model to follow in terms of curbing and containing unwholesome goods, medications, and the likes of it. So proudly, for me, it's a celebration that I was there when it started, and it's 25 years and it's still growing.
All right, thank you. Coming back to you, Dr. Abubakar, a recent conference where the current DG of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, she proffered some approaches that NAFDAC wants to go into in terms of increasing the regulatory functions of the agency. Just talk to us about those.
Yeah, thank you very much. When she came on board precisely on 30th of November 2017, naturally speaking, she did a systemic study and tried to do a kind of what we call a SWOT analysis, looking at the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to NAFDAC. And out of that, she discovered that there are some missing links. She needs to strengthen the areas of weaknesses and also consolidate on the successes that we have recorded under the watch of our predecessors. So she started from there, and several other directors made presentation and brainstorm. A kind of mini retreat was held for her to have an insight, a deep insight into the regulatory activities of the agency. Don't forget that she's coming from the academia. She has been a professor, an emeritus professor, to speak, of professor of pharmaceutics. So she also needs to be to take some kind of study, systemic. She also needed to study the situation on ground, being another different terrain, the regulatory, but not totally different from what she's used to, because all her life she has involved herself not only in research but also in terms of the drug production and evaluation. So she's in a familiar terrain, but she needed to study what was on ground. And she discovered that there must be one of the most cardinal regulatory framework. There must be what we call the quality management system in any organization. And she told us of a story of a former university that was going down the drain, and QMS was introduced, and that tended to jumpstart the university, and the university came back to life. So for her, number one, QMS. So the whole system has to be infused in QMS so that it can be internalized and institutionalized, and that is where we are now. We've done so many professors and so many experts in the quality management have been introduced to NAFDAC, and they are working closely with us. All the departments, all facets of NAFDAC regulatory work are now imbibing the QMS system. So as I speak with you now, training and staff training are being conducted all over the country, and we are making progress. Then on top of that, she also did a kind of tour of the laboratory facilities and discovered that, yes, NAFDAC has evolved over the years, and we have tried our best obtaining international accreditation for our laboratories. But from where she's coming from, the climb where she's coming from, the United States of America, there's still a lot of gap.
Big gap,
and that big gap, we have to fill it. And if truly we have to be ahead of others, not just being top 20, but also one of the first three in the foreseeable future. So right now she's back on retooling the lab, equipping the lab, and also discarding some outdated, outmoded laboratory equipment, and try to also bring some on board, and also staff training. So very cardinal for her. So staff and capacity development is also paramount. And again, she did something as a quick fix. Immediately she came about. We did the very first 2 months. Took a look at our lab. I discovered that the lab took a look at our website. I discovered that the NAFDAC website is so boring, and she immediately gave a matching order that I got some people on board to redesign and give the ICT division that something drastic must be done. And today, within 3 months, we have done so much to revamp the website.
We'll come back to those ICT issues a little later, but I want to come back to Muji. As a health correspondent for the past several years, what are the issues that you've identified that need to be radically addressed to further enhance the workings of NAFDAC?
Yes, we need to go further to other components of NAFDAC, which NAFDAC is regulating. We have been able to do well in terms of water, in terms of medication, but cosmetics and other issues, we need also to go into that. And I think that's part of the trend in which the labs are being made to taste, in terms of ensuring that what we use is not about just what we eat, but also what we eat, what we use. These days, you have a lot. You have a lot of issues surrounding some diseases, particularly cancer, that has become, epidemic. And the experts are saying to us that watch what you eat, watch what you use as cosmetics. And I think NAFDAC is very central to this. And so, beyond the fact that we now know that we have to look through our medication to ensure that it's NAFDAC certified, we also must pay attention to our daily use in terms of creams, particularly women, to ensure that is this NAFDAC certified. Then there's an emergence of herbal medicine. Sometimes all NAFDAC does is that it's safe for human consumption. But I think NAFDAC should go a little further to doing a lot of
efficacy.
Yes, efficacy and potency now should come in so that, because people just make all kinds of claims on herbal medicine, and we don't know where we're going about that, particularly now that it's difficult to go. I mean, it's more expensive. Out-of-pocket expenses is driving people back to what we call our native doctors. But we need NAFDAC there to regulate in terms of knowing what to take and how efficacious some of these claims are, so that we are not injuring ourselves by ourselves. And I think that as a journalist, I think journalists should do more. Like we started at the beginning, we were taken everywhere. If you're burning out a medication, we want to know, why are you burning it out? So that other people can know. There's need to have more engagement with the media, not just to cover events, but also to be part of the research. Research and investigation, so that together, like we worked at the very beginning, we can amplify that better now. More so, thank God, people are more enlightened now. If you can't hear it on radio or see it on television, you can go to the website and see something like that. So there's need, a lot to do, but thinking back when we just started, I think
a lot of progress
has been made.
Okay, well,
even if I have to say to you.
Yeah, thank you.
This is a question I want to put to both of you. We're staying with Muji. The federal government recently banned the importation of codeine, but lots of anecdotal cases where people will talk about, will scoff at that directive, because they will say, well, I have my own private supplier. What is NAFDAC doing in terms of regulating the let's say, black market on these kind of drugs, codeine and other types?
Yes, I think I'd rather take that
question.
All right.
It's within the purview,
all right.
NAFDAC. We've done so much. The very first pronouncement by the Honorable Minister of Health was the ban you are talking about.
Yes.
But after that, so much has been done. We are working quietly because the regulatory agency is not everything we bring to the media. So we're working with the industry We need to tackle the problem from the source where it is coming, and we have identified the manufacturers, especially the local manufacturers, and also the importers of these banned items, and already a ban has been placed in terms of issuance of license for chemicals. That put a stop to it, that you cannot bring in the chemical for it to produce the containing cough syrup. So that's then also at the post-marketing surveillance, we've also gone to mop up over 2.5 million of all those bottles of the to take it out of circulation, so that people do not have access to it. Because it's one thing to bind the raw materials, the chemicals, and also another thing to curtail the ones that are already in circulation. So that's what we have done, and what we are trying to do now to see which the DG is working assiduously with the federal government to see how this manufacturer can be compensated for what we have taken off from the circulation. So a kind of so that they don't have the financial shock, because it's a lot. 2.5 million bottles away from circulation is a lot of money. So that is what the DG is working on now, to see how he can assuage the feelings of the manufacturers, who ideally, yes, what they are bringing out, the cough syrup is not that it's injurious to public health, rather some people are abusing it. Literally speaking, it's not 100% their own problem. But so we're working around the clock, and we have a working committee which the DG is spearheading, set up by the Honorable Minister of Health, that is working quietly to resolve some of these issues. And beyond that, as I speak with you, there's what we call the Young Pharmacists Group, a group of young pharmacists that are working closely with NAFDAC, and they are, as I speak, they are already in the school working. We call it the YPG group, working with NAFDAC, and they'll be mobilized to go and talk to the young ones in secondary school, so that at the formative level, NAFDAC will be able to catch them young, so that we a kind of prevention. Then while the NDLA deals squarely with the ones that are already hooked to drug abuse, and in terms of winning them out of the menace. So we also try to embark on an intensive and massive public enlightenment campaign very soon, and which are waiting for the DG has approached Her Excellency, the wife of the President, Mrs. Aisha Muhammad Buhari, to be the special guest of honor and help us to flag off the nationwide campaign. So we're getting a date, and very soon you'll see NAFDAC and NDLA working harmoniously and get cracking to see how we can tackle it from the enforcement perspective, from the regulatory perspective, and also from the public enlightenment perspective. So we're using a multidimensional approach towards tackling the problem, so that because the problem is deep-seated more than what you are seeing.
Okay. Yes, I just want to quickly jump on this, that you also have a platform. NAFDAC has a platform that is called the pharmacovigilance, where people should report when you have an adverse effect of any medication that you're using. And I think this is people-oriented, which also would help NAFDAC to do its work better. It has helped in terms of some medications which they had to recall from the market, and I think this is good. It is a good avenue for us also. Pharmacovigilance, yes. It's another area where it's people-oriented. It's for us, by us, for NAFDAC to keep us healthy.
All right.
Or healthier.
Okay. As a reporter going out on the field, what kind of statements or comments or explanations do you get from peddlers of these drugs? I was talking to Dr. Abubakar about how NAFDAC regulates the black market. What do they tell you?
Yes, they're not happy, obviously. And well, we've had an encounter. You recall back in Lagos, a particular medication, was a substandard of it was imported into Nigeria and affecting children. And the importers came after us. Came after us with well, first they tried to bribe us, which we didn't take. Then later on, it was a threat. But we're living, and thank God that has been regulated. And because if you start bringing, unwholesome drugs for children, for common respiratory, illness, and you want to bribe us to kill the story, it didn't work with us. And I'm happy that it's not working. And these are part of the best practices that has given NAFDAC the golden stamp that it has, both at at the national level and international level. But we're celebrating, and I thought we would speak to this.
We're celebrating, and I have some books here, like you rightly pointed out, talking about the current DG's achievement, what she has brought on board. When she came on board, she did part of the revamping of the website. And she also believed that we need to arm the Nigerian public with the right appropriate information. And this compendium was revised, and we're about, it's also been circulated now. Okay. And it's a directory of registered products. We call it the compendium of NAFDAC registered products. All registered products, drugs, food. I'm just holding one of them now. There are about 4 big books like this, product line by product line. We have one for compendium for drugs, we have for processed food, we have for cosmetics, packaged water, and all other regulated products. And the essence of the compendium basically is to serve as a veritable instrument or avenue for information, and also for to equip Nigerians with the right information so that you can put your destiny in your hands. When you have the book at home, it's a reference material. Before you go to a pharmacy or if a supermarket, if it is a supermarket food products, you would have made some consultation to ensure that what you are buying is registered. It's also on the website, and also we have a CD version of it. So it's a different approach, whichever one you want. And the one for various pharmaceutical outlets, there are going to be various pharmacies, patent medicine stores all over the country, so that if patients are given prescription, they go to the pharmacy, they will be able to consult even and ensure that it is on the database. Those who don't have, not everybody has access to internet, so people can see a hard copy in various stores. So this is what an innovation, this is another improvement version that the Professor Moji Sola Christiana has brought on board. And it's going to be part of the anniversary celebration. So that is why I told you it's not about pump and pageantry, whining and dining. Yes, there will be whining and dining, but taking stock and also try to see what do we need to do to bring on board. And also another publication, the NAFDAC at 25 book is in the works. Will soon go to the press, and that will be launched at the appropriate time when we get a date from Mr. President, who is going to be the special guest of honor, the President Muhammad Buhari. So all in this is an attempt to mark the journey, NAFDAC anniversary.
Well, once again, we'd like to congratulate you on 25 years of the existence of NAFDAC, and we certainly hope and expect for even greater things to come in the life of the agency. I'd like to thank Dr. Abubakar Jimo, Director Public Affairs of the agency. Thank you for giving us your insights on Insight. And of course, our own Moji Makanjwala, MFR, our media consultant and seasoned broadcaster. Thanks for your comments.
My pleasure all the time.
It's been a pleasure having you. And up next will be the media review segment.
This is the media review segment on Insight. With 2019 around the corner, journalists and political desk must be having a tough time covering the political space, which is already tense and charged up. Now, how fair and balanced has your reportage been, and what are the many challenges? Well, to talk about this, we have the Deputy Director News Political Desk of the NTA, Umar Issa Bununu. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Cecil.
Let me start from the general. How fair and balanced would you say political reporting has been in Nigeria generally?
Well, it's not been very easy, considering the fact that we have a very large number of political parties. That's about 91 registered parties across the country. And, you know, not all journalists pay attention to ethics. Not all journalists pay attention to the court of broadcast, that's political broadcast coverage, given to us by the NBC, that's National Broadcasting Commission. What I'm saying, in effect, is that some of us go out of their way to at least in their effort to satisfy certain interests or to get favor from some of these politicians. They don't report what is on ground. Some over-sensationalize, some throw away ethics to the dogs, and which is not very healthy for democracy and Nigeria as a whole.
Well, in media, I hear sensationalism actually sells. So maybe, I don't know, we might come back to that later. Tell us, what does the NBC say are the ethics of proper political broadcasting? You
see, the NBC Court guides broadcast, not only broadcast, guides journalists in general as to how to cover politics. You should be factual, your reports must be balanced, it must be fair, try as much as possible to be objective. in as much as you cannot cover all the parties at all the times, but you should try and give all the parties equal opportunity in terms of airtime. If party A does this today, you cover party A, you should as well try and cover party B and C anytime they are having function or event.
Okay, in managing the political desk of the NTA, how have you been able to go around this? I mean, there are so many political parties. Maybe Party A may have a little, might seem to see Party A a little more on edge other than Party B. And right now we have about
91
political parties. You have a tough time. How do you get to manage?
Well, we've been managing it very well because we cover a party when that party has something to do or has something to offer. Just like you said, in our daily news and programming, you will discover that we carry more of APC stories. Not because APC is in government, but because APC is one political party that is very vibrant, that is always having activities here and there. So that is why APC is more prominent in the news, not only in NTA. If you check all the media outlets in Nigeria, APC is always in the news. This is because other parties don't do what they're supposed to be doing. And in some cases, when they do one thing or the other, they don't invite the press. But in NTA, we have opened our space. All parties are welcome. We treat them equally and fairly. So long as you will perform, so long as you will have an event, we'll be there to cover and we'll use it in our news. Well,
yeah, obviously you cannot create an event for parties who don't have such. Now let's talk about ownership of some media organizations. Do you think there are political vested interests in some of these media organizations owned by private individuals, or politicians have vested interest because of the ownership of some media houses?
Well, it is very difficult to jettison ownership and control from what we are talking about, because the owners of such media outfits will have influence in what the media do.
To the detriment of professionalism?
Of course. He who pays the piper dictates the tune.
Okay, well, I'll just leave it at that. Now, let's go on to, sometimes we read in the papers, we watch on news, there is a whole 10-stop scenario in the political space because of something which just happened. How do you get to be fair in reporting this, especially when you go out for your interviews, you talk to respondent A, B, C, and you get diverse views? How do you get to make it balanced? Because sometimes when we watch in different media, we get different interpretation of what just happened.
Well, you see different interpretations of what happened. This is natural, because if you send two reporters to cover a particular event, they will come with two different reports from two different perspectives, because not everybody sees an event the way it is. Just like we said earlier, some of us get vested interest, and they try to protect such interest to the detriment of the nation. But what we should be doing as journalists is to place national interest over and above individual or selfish interest. That is to say, we should try as much as possible to report events as they are. We should not involve ourselves. We should always detach ourselves from the events unfolding so that we can be able to tell Nigerians, this is what is happening, this is the true nature of it. And in doing that, you should ensure that you balance your story, you are fair to both parties, and there is equal opportunity given to all players.
Your source of information, sometimes they plant correspondents, respondents who give you news which is in tune with their sponsors. How do you get to play around that? How do you get around it to be sure that you are getting the truth from these people?
Well, in NTA we don't do that. We conduct our business as it should be, and those who are fond of doing it would hardly get the best out of that respondent. And a discerning viewer will know that what is coming out from the respondent is not true. He may be acting a script, and he may be playing to at least to satisfy the interests of one person or the other.
And how does the reporter, the correspondent, detach himself away from, because everybody in Nigeria, I believe, many people in Nigeria have some political stance or affiliation or sympathy to, so how does the journalist who goes out there because detach himself from reports what is the truth?
That is when objectivity comes to play. If you strive to be objective, balanced and fair to all, you will not get involved in whatever you are reporting. But the moment you throw away objectivity, you throw away balance, you throw away fairness, definitely your interest must get into what you are going to report, which is not good.
How far can you go to get the truth from a when a political story is unfolding?
To get the truth?
How far can you go?
You ask, the reporter will bring his report, then you go through it. If you are not satisfied, you have your other contact. You have people outside whom you rely upon to get information from.
Okay, I'll rephrase now. How far should a correspondent who goes out go to get the truth from the field in reporting a certain thing? How far can a person go? How far is too far?
Well, you see, handling a politician is not an easy task.
I know.
As a journalist, when you are going out, you should know that you are going out to talk to someone whose yes may be no and whose no may be yes. So you should know your audience. You should know the person you are talking to. You have to have background information as to whatever you are going to do. Because if you are not equipped, if you are not fully armed information-wise about the person and the subject matter, you may not get to know the truth about what the person is saying.
When election periods come like this, there's so much money going around, and sometimes, of course, many times it might get into the hands of the journalist on field. Does this in any way worry you that it might affect the outcome of the coverage or the report you receive?
You see, journalists and money, that's brown envelope.
Brown envelope
we
syndrome.
always discourage our staff from collecting brown envelope, because there are strings attached to such gifts sometimes. Once you allow yourself to the moment you collect them, you have to be fighting yourself. You have some feelings within you will be say, this guy has given me something good. I think I can water down this report. Why should I report it the way it is? For you to please him now, in appreciation, you now try to water down a report that is very important to Nigerians. Nigerians would like to know what is happening, but because of 10 naira, 20 naira, or 1,000 naira, you compromise, which is very, very fundamental. It's a fundamental problem in journalism, that brown envelope syndrome.
All right, the brown envelope syndrome has always been in the journalism world, and I think gradually we're trying to fight it. Can you advise the Nigerian journalists, even as 2019 comes around, to be fair, truth, balance in reporting, briefly? You
see, my advice to the Nigerian journalists is that we as practitioners, we should try as much as possible to live above board. We should put national interest over and above individual, selfish or sectional interest. We should be fair, we should be balanced in our reporting, and we should be truthful. It is only by doing that that we'll be objective.
Umar Isabununu, Deputy Director, News Political of the NTA. Thank you very much for coming around and doing justice as much as possible to this topic.
Thank you very much.
All right, try to live above board and put national interest above personal interest. That is the message for the Nigerian journalists covering the political scene, and of course all journalists generally in the country. The program is still Insight. In a moment, I'll be back on with Dennis.
So, Cecile, just give us your assessment of how journalists in Nigeria are reporting the political arena right now.
Yeah, it's good enough to know that there are ethics in guiding the profession, especially reporting political issues like this, so as not to charge up the already charged atmosphere. Yeah. And I guess I've educated us a little on that. We pray that we just manage the reportage of these things and let's not flare up unnecessary tension around the country.
Thank you, Cecile. Well, on that note, we've come to the end of this edition of our program, Insight. My name is Dennis Adigunle. On behalf of Cecile and myself and the entire production crew, we'll see you next time.